we've not got the police running around with guns over here shooting everybody, but we do have some of the same problems. We haven't got it to the same extent. I was talking to when I was talking to my friend Nina the other day. We were conversing about this, and I said much the same as you: community oversight with the police, breaking up the police so they weren't dealing with because what when I speak to police now, and I often when I see them, I usually chat with them. They're normal people. Some of them are quite, they usually end up being quite nice if you're talking to them, quite open. And they
This
do say
one of the
whenever I ask,
situations where our countries are quite different, Gordon.
yeah, yeah, I wouldn't do it in America. I
That's
do,
not
especially
something.
if I was
That's
black.
not something you do in America. I mean, especially if you're black, that's unheard of in the United
Yeah,
States. But even if you're not, that's not something people do in the
it probably
U.S.
would be the case over here as well if you're black. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm white and I haven't got a clue what they go through and they have gone
Sure. Oh,
through.
I don't either. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. And when you talk to, and the one thing that this has all done is that, just people that in your life, friends of yours and that, are black and people of color, they're telling their stories more. And it's mind blowing. I
Yeah,
mean, I've had people on my show. My friend Lenny, who's a hilarious comedian. He's been coming on Get Your News On with Ron, and he's sharing his stories as a black guy, and Lenny in particular is black and Asian. So he actually has a really funny joke about it in his act where he basically says, "I fit a lot of descriptions, so cops love me. If there's a Filipino suspect, I could be that guy." And it's a really funny joke that he has in his act. And so he does get, I mean, he's the kind of guy he's gotten pulled over, and they just, oh, this car's stolen. It wasn't stolen. It was his car. It was his
yeah.
car that he bought. But they were suspecting that it was stolen. Why were they suspecting that? Because of the color of his skin. That's why. I mean, and it's like these stories just, it makes your stomach turn. It really does. And I'll be honest with you, I've had the opposite experience where I have seen cops where I was a person of suspicion. And then when I rolled down the window and they saw that my skin was white, all of a sudden I wasn't a person of suspicion anymore. And I can tell you, so before I, moved here to Los Angeles, I was a road comic, which, you got those in England too. And that's basically just a comedian that exclusively makes their living on the road. It's,
Yeah.
it's exactly what it sounds like. You go from club to club, gig to gig, and that's what you do. And in the United States, a lot of that type of work is in the Midwest, because not as many comics live out there. Most of the
Yeah.
comics live in New York or LA. So you got to entertain the rest of the country too. So a lot of road comics, they live in the Midwest so they can travel and work there. And so I've spent a lot of time, and I used to live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is basically almost like right in the middle of the country, kind of. And I would drive around the country. And I had a 1998 Honda Accord with black tinted windows that was, it had had about 4 or 5 owners before me. It had a lot of miles on it. This car has seen some stuff, man. If cars could talk, this one had some stories. And, it had tinted windows. So a lot of times I'd be driving around, rural USA where there's cops who are just bored. And keep in mind, a lot of these cops, sometimes they might have quotas they need to reach as
Yeah.
far as how many people they have to pull over, how many tickets they have to issue. And they're just bored. And they see a car with an out of state plate, and they see a car with tinted windows, and they think this is somebody who's looking for trouble or somebody who's up to something. And then, they pull that car over. They see a nerdy white guy in glasses,
And you get
and they
suited.
decide this person's not suspicious anymore, and they let me go. And they usually would make up some bullshit reason why they pulled me over. They'd be like, "Oh, you kind of swerved a little bit. Did I? Did I swerve a little bit?"
Yeah.
So, it's very real. And then I've had it where, they were cops will try to, like, get in your car if they suspect that you might have pot or something. And it's just it's just a systemic disease, man. It really is.
I saw a report just the other day about there was two cops who'd pulled over two kids, and one was rough with the one kid, and they searched his car, and he got caught on his body cam actually planting marijuana or cannabis rather in the kid's car. It was on Democracy Now! The other day. It's crazy over there. I mean, I'm fully aware that I'm white and I get treated totally different, and I have got not a clue what black people and people from ethnic minorities go through and the racism that they've faced all their lives. But when I speak to police officers over here and I ask them, what's the hardest part of your job, and it's the fact that the thing that really does demoralise them is the fact that they're not doing what they signed up to do. Most of what they're doing is social work, and it's mental health problems that they're going out to see now because of the breakdown of society. It's the same in our court system. Our head judge, I've forgotten her name now, lady something or other, she was on the BBC last week saying, 80%, the vast majority of the cases that they're seeing in the court system are people who have just got mental health problems, and it's a breakdown of society rather than people being criminal. And this is two totally different things. That guy, the black guy who got was it Rashad, who got shot in the he was asleep in his car. Two police officers turn up, and Rashad Williams was his name. I've forgotten his name now. And he ends up getting shot by two police officers because he's asleep in his car. I mean, that should never happen. The police should never really be called to that. He's not a criminal. That's not a criminal. That is somebody who's maybe having a bit of a tough time and needs a bit of help.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That was insane. And that whole thing was like, he was telling stories to the officers at some point, and then they ended up shooting him. I mean, it was just like beyond messed up that anything like that would even happen. And it's so it's a system that just needs completely overhauled, and we just need to completely revisit, well, what does it mean to have law and order in our lives? What does it mean to have police in our lives? Is this structure in any way helpful for society? Is it causing, I mean, all these and all these arguments like, well, what about in this situation where it's like, well, has that ever happened? Has there ever been, I mean, why? So it's just one of those things where like this structure is completely, a lot of people say like, well, the idea of just reinventing everything, that seems like that's a lot. That's very extensive. And it's like, yeah, but here's the thing. For us to come up with something shittier than what we have now.
Not just shittier, incrementally shittier.
Incrementally shittier. Like
it's shittier and taking a long time.
Yeah, like it'd be like an effort to just be like, how could we come up with something shittier than what we presently have? This just system of brutality of a bunch of just undertrained, bloodthirsty maniacs, some of who are white supremacists and neo-Nazis themselves. How can we possibly come up with something shittier than this? Maybe if we get straight up robotic stormtroopers, that's the only way it could be marginally shittier. So it's like we're bound to come up with something better. And we're bound, like any whataboutism you come up with, like, well, what about this situation? If, such and such happens, we're bound to come up with a better solution on how to solve those problems. Even in just the bill I wrote, if you have designated combat officers where their only job is in an emergency situation where force may be completely inevitable, if that's the only thing they're focused on, guess what? They're going to get to an emergency a hell of a lot quicker than police officers do now. They're gonna be there as quick as they can, and this is gonna be what they've trained their whole career for. Yeah. They're not gonna be some guy who just busted a noise complaint and maybe cracked a kid's lip for no fucking reason, and now they're just like, oh yeah, now I got to go handle a live shooting. That's not gonna happen.